today is kind of emotional for me, actually. So I'm going to do something a bit different to what I normally do. I would normally trot out my presentation about how amazing digital government is and how it's the future and how open data is going to change the world. And all of that is true, and I will talk about that in part. But I'm actually going to be slightly self-indulgent and talk about me instead for 17 minutes. And what I wanted to do really was to tell you about all the little bits of me, all the bits of things that have happened in my life that not necessarily hugely dramatic, but make me who I am and give me my view on how the world should be and how government should be and how I feel that we can together change the way that the world is and move things forward. I'm going to tell you about my journey from this guy here that you see. That is me, see the likeness, obviously. I still like to wear towels on my head. Through my journey in Carlisle to being a North London bloke to actually becoming me in this city, which is why it's particularly emotional for me to be back here. It's half a lifetime since I lived here, but it still is the place that I carry with me wherever I go when I'm traveling around, whether I'm living in London or doing work in Australia or whatever else I do. Birmingham's in my heart as I do that. And also in my heart are these two, and they are me, I am them. They are everything. They've given me everything I am today in terms of my confidence, in terms of the firm foundations that I've had, the beliefs I have. These guys taught me everything I know about fairness, about justice, about honesty. So my parents, Barbara and Bill, they were kind of destined to be together. My mum lost her dad when she was very small. My dad lost his mum when he was too young. They found each other in the same job. They're both journalists. And together they were sort of freedom fighters of the Northeast during really tough times when the Northeast had government step away from it, had government forget about it, had the community step in its place, had journalists stand up for those communities and look to support those communities when government during the Thatcher era had stepped away from them. And everything that I am as a result of everything that they are is part of my story and part of my journey. And part of that journey was to come here, not specifically to the floozy, but as one part of the journey. So as a kid, we came here when my dad had the opportunity for us to really take a step up in many ways. So my parents had come from pretty working class families. We were brought up, me and my two sisters, with sort of very much working class values, whilst my parents had worked really hard, taught us everything you needed to know about aspiration and hard work, and how anything was possible and how we could be whoever we wanted to be. And so coming to Birmingham was quite fitting in many respects because it's that kind of city that makes you believe anything is possible. Interestingly, as a lefty, and as born to lefties, I went here. And most of you will probably recognize King Edward's by the university. Stupidly, they allowed me to take the 11 plus and the King Edward's exam, and then let me choose when I passed both. And so chose the private school, which was it was the first time, I guess, looking back, that I learnt about compromise around values and principles and family and love and what all of those things coming together means that you have to do. And they were faced with letting me go to a private school, which we couldn't really afford, to be honest. But instead of holidays, we had private education, for which I'm eternally grateful. But it is also a slightly anomalous organisation, King Edward's Foundation. It's kind of unique to Birmingham, the way it's a sort of royally established private charity mashup thing that has some sort of Robin Hoodness about it as it redistributes from the people who can afford the private schools and the people who are paying rent on their buildings to give other kids free education as well. So in many ways, it kind of represents where I've come from and where I am now in many ways. And as I say, coming from Birmingham gives you another level of understanding around sort of the civic and government. And I was When we first moved to Birmingham, we had to stay in what was the Holiday Inn for a while we tried to find a house. And I'll never forget being age 7, looking out at what I then knew as the Coca-Cola Tower, looking at this amazing city in front of us that to me was just awe-inspiring. And really, when I first fell in love with cities, I fell in love with Birmingham, and very much the sort of could see the Joseph Chamberlain mindset of anything is possible in Birmingham. But equally, and that was during the era where everything around here was changing and being regenerated as well. But equally, it did teach me that Birmingham forgets its best assets far too often, that Birmingham forgets about Brummies, that it is too interested in shiny objects and fancy buildings. And we forget about what makes Birmingham great, and that is you and me and everyone you know, and every Brummie who lives in this great city. And so for me, that was an interesting thing to learn. Then I went to Manchester. I was one Spanish written exam away from going to Cambridge, but that aside, I've got over it. 16 years. Where I sort of I started to understand myself in terms of politics in some respects. I had these feelings, I'm an emotional guy, right? Like I had these feelings about fairness and justice and how it wasn't right that people were being screwed over in the world and that we needed to think differently about how we change the system. And I was very interested in the system and big politics in Marx, in some of the things he had to say around how can structural change transform the way that we run our society? What does government give us? What does it bring us in terms of fairness and justice and a safety net for people who live in a very unequal society, particularly in terms of power? And power has always been something that absolutely fascinates me. And I kind of left Manchester fascinated by cities, by sort of strong urban leadership, by very big power structures, but also with a burning desire to go and smash that down and to actually say, how can we infiltrate these big power structures? How do we actually use government for the good of the people rather than for the good of itself? But also with a very strong belief that government was a means to an end in terms of changing our society, bringing fairness and justice. I ended up in conservative Barnet in North London. As you would imagine, as a burning-hearted Marxist, it was a slightly strange thing for me. And then within a week, I was made even more confused by my then boss taking me to meet this conservative leader of Barnet Council, which, as you can imagine, I was a little bit nervous of, as I felt I might sort of blurt out something I shouldn't and lose my job immediately. But as it turns out, he was a really nice dude, and that was so confusing to me. I was like, wait, so you're kind of nice, and you want good things for the people of Barnet. There's a lot of red brick buildings and white dudes in my presentation. It's very interesting. That's what showed me. It's only just become aware to me as I look at my screen, but that's obviously what makes me. So I kind of understood confusion around personal politics, and for the first time, where I didn't really understand how it could be that I felt something so strongly around socialism and around states solving everybody's problems, yet there was this really nice old duffer who was the conservative leader of Barnet, who wanted the same things, just in a different way. The thing that really, really disappointed me was I thought local government, call me a geek, I thought local government was going to be stuffed full of social activists. I thought there was going to be this revolutionary, we're going to fix everything, we're going to help everybody. As it turns out, that is absolutely not true. You find there are some amazing people in local government who really do want to change things, who are trapped by an overbearing system. But it was very interesting for me that my personal politics had been challenged, and also my sort of path to change the world had been challenged. This wasn't going to be 100% my answer. And I wasn't going to be able to do it through the thing that I always thought I could, which was government. So I kind of accidentally left government, AKA had a bit of a fight, verbally. And kind of realized that there is a limit to being a rebel in government. There is only so much you can challenge the system from the inside before you kind of reach the limits of people's acceptance of that. And so I accidentally sort of started a thing called FutureGov, with the intention of trying to use what I could see as an emerging tool for change, where I could see that digital was already really transforming big organizations, and I felt that it must have potential for changing public services for the better as well, as a mechanism for breaking down these huge government power structures where power is very sticky and very centralized in the hands of few. And actually, could digital be a way of actually empowering the many to both understand their own lives, to sort of express their own desires and aspirations for the world in the way that I'd been lucky enough coming from an amazing family background and giving all the opportunities of Birmingham. Could we actually redistribute power to people through digital? And then I took a bit of a hiatus. I took a bit of a risk because FutureGov is kind of apolitical. We just want to fix government. And then I wrote a blog post that said, you know what, I'm going to take 2 months off and work for the Labour Party for free in 2010 to see what we can do to get them re-elected. So you can tell that went well. And so I just hung out with this dude, and I really believed in Gordon. Like, I really believed in him. I did it for him more than anything, because I'd met him. I used to mentor a kid off an estate in London, and we'd met Gordon Brown through that charity, and he is what he is. He is what you think he is, but also he's a really nice dude. And he was trying really hard to be nice to this kid, but he was struggling to connect. And I was like, I can see something. I'm going to go and help him. But then it really was everything you would imagine. The party machine was 10 times worse than just sort of everyday government. Extremely internally focused, not very aspirational, not truly interested in us. I know you're shocked. But it's true. Everything I saw on the inside was thoroughly depressing, to the point where not only will I not engage this time round, there is a very good chance I won't vote this time round, because I think no matter who you vote for next time round, the result will be pretty much the same. That's where I am, and that's how far I've gone. And again, from an idealist who believed in big democracy, big politics, big government, where the hell am I in that? And now I'm lucky enough to find myself in a sort of collective that happens to be called a company, but really is my mechanism, my vehicle for being able to change the world and to try and express myself. You know, there's a gang of 35 hoodied FutureGovers who roam the streets of London trying to fix things and make government a bit less bad. And how do we actually then think about how we disrupt power structures? How do we use digital to really change the world? Both how do we sort of work with the system, but simultaneously, how do we work against the system? How do we try and undercut the system and say, well, if you're not going to do it, then we're going to do it a different way? And that's essentially the vehicle that I use to get there. Because sometimes it isn't enough to say, a city's great, a government's great, people are trying their hardest, because that's not good enough sometimes. Sometimes we need to try harder. Sometimes we need to think, maybe this institution was okay 100 years ago when it was invented, but it's not good enough anymore. How do we actually tear the world down? How do we actually start again? How do we actually find a way to understand when government needs our support and when we've reached the limits of government and can actually build something separate and different and new, and something that is very 2014, not 1914, which is the kind of structures and processes we have to deal with every day in government. And for me, it all goes back to power inequality. It all goes back to how do we think back to what we all want in terms of our aspirations. How do we all come together to determine what the future looks like? How do we tell government what we want its role to be, rather than allow government to think that it has control over us and it can tell us how to be in the world? It's the other way around. And I think digital more than ever has given us that opportunity to think fundamentally differently about what we want, what our aspirations are, and where we go next with the world, and it's in our hands. And so for me, what we now have the privilege and the fun of inventing new things, of inventing new kinds of public services. So one thing that we're doing is called Casserole Club. And instead of saying, how do we make Meals on Wheels a bit less bad by putting a web form up so people can apply more efficiently to get bad food, we say, how about we tear it down and start again? How about we build a match.com for local communities so that a cook with a spare plate at dinner one evening can be connected to a diner who's socially and digitally isolated, who might fancy a chat and a bit of dinner? And that's what we did. We built it with a feature phone, a Google spreadsheet, and one guy on a street in Surrey for 3 months, seeing whether people trust each other enough to eat each other's food. When they did, we then built an app. When we did that, we went to the size of a council area. And when that worked, we went to 5 council areas. And when that worked, we're now just launched in Australia. And all of that comes from just one burning passion to change things. And this digital thing and this the sort of dogged determination and digital that means that we can build new things like never before, that we can overcome these power structures. And the only thing holding us back is our belief. Like, if you believe it, if you have a great idea, I have absolutely no doubt that any one of you in this room can make that happen yourselves. And I'm no different to any one of you in that way. And for me, the key thing that I want you to take away from this is that we can't wait for government. I love government dearly still. I still do believe that it has a role to play in our lives. I do still believe it is crucial in terms of fairness, in terms of redistribution, in terms of ensuring that we have a consistent quality of life no matter where we're born, who we're born to, or the opportunities that we have in front of us. But at the same time, government is slow. Government is self-serving. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and we have to change government from the outside. There is no two ways about it. We have to show them the future. If you tried to get government to do Casserole Club, you would have been waiting a very long time. It would have been seen as too risky, and people wouldn't do it. Well, it's not true. People do it. People are good people. And now, in terms of what next for me, well, I've now got this amazing woman alongside me. I've got my own family of activists now. My wife, Marisi. There's not many people you will see capable of making President Obama pull that face. But Marisi is that woman. And it's amazing to be in a sort of relationship with someone who shares my burning passion to change the world, to really believe in a better government, but also a different government. And we're almost like a house of activists now, which is fascinating. And the reason it's even more important to me now is that this little guy is coming in March. And it's even more important to me that we really do build the world that I want him to live in, all of us together. So for me, it's about what can we do together? How do we keep clarity about purpose? How do we keep our burning desire to make change happen? But equally, how do we work together and stay totally focused on the mission at hand, which is a better world for all of us? Thank you.